still pace myself, man.
Well, you should be hearing from Sheena about us getting together.
Need to call this meeting to order. If you would, is Ruth on?
Yes.
Thank you. Call this meeting to order. Would you please stand and follow along with the Pledge of Allegiance, please? And Charlie will provide an invocation, please.
Father, again, we just come to you and we thank you for who you are and all the mercy and blessings that you pour out upon us as we go throughout our daily lives. We just pray that you be with this time, bless us, Father, and guide our decisions that we make during this time. For it's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Charlie. Madam Clerk, would you call roll call, please?
Benton, Denham,
Here.
Cooper,
Here.
Milton,
Here.
Rodriguez,
Here.
Howden,
Here.
LeBlanc.
Here.
Your Honor, you have a quorum.
And at tonight's meeting, Alderman Ruth Denham is joining us via Zoom. Hi, Ruth.
Hello, everybody.
Under awards and recognitions, there was an item. Is Jim Meadows, is he online? Jim, I need to add an item that is not on the agenda, and you'll understand why under awards and recognition. Ralph, do you have a few words you would like to share with anybody?
So as everybody knows, Lisa had been the interim city administrator, and she really has been kind of a force for us. And really, I'll just kind of read this, and it'll kind of echo exactly how we've all felt. I read this Monday a week ago. It says, "The power of one. The little things you have done have had a powerful effect on many people in a great way. You've inspired the mayor, the board of aldermen, city staff, and this community with your willingness and ability to help others. You have taken on Branson and its many roles, one day at a time, always searching to make the city a better place, and you have seized every opportunity to improve everyday life for our community. We are better because you are here. On behalf of the board of aldermen, on behalf of the mayor and the board of aldermen, thank you for making us look so good. You have made Branson a better place." And I had read that on Monday, and we actually had it lasered into this wood for you. And this is a one-off design. There will never be anything else like it. This is just for you from us.
Speech.
Thank you. Thank you to the mayor and the board and all my fellow directors and employees. It was my pleasure. It's always a challenge, but it was a pleasure to do it. And I appreciate this city and the citizens and what it represents. And that was from my heart, and that's what I hope it projected. I'd like to wish Kathy good luck and and welcome to the city of Branson. It's the most fabulous place to work, in my opinion, after 33 years. So thank you to everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. And I have a proclamation. Charlie, would you meet me down front? For like a proclamation I'd like to read and present. It is for the Fire Prevention Week. Whereas the city of Branson is committed to ensuring the safety and security of all those living in and visiting our community. And whereas fire is a serious public safety concern and homes are the locations where people are at the greatest risk from fire. And whereas smoke alarms sense smoke well before you can, alerting you to the danger in the event of a fire in which you may have as little as 2 minutes to escape safely. And whereas Branson residents should be sure everyone in the home understands the sounds of the smoke alarms and knows how to respond. And whereas Branson residents who have planned and practiced a home fire escape plan are more prepared and will therefore be more likely to survive a fire. And whereas City of Branson fire responders are dedicated to reducing the occurrences of home fires and home fire injuries through prevention and protection education. And whereas the 2022 Fire Prevention Week theme, Fire Won't Wait, Plan Your Escape, serves to remind the City of Branson residents that it is important to have your home fire escape plan. Now therefore, I, Larry Milton, Mayor of the City of Branson, do hereby proclaim October 9th through the 15th, 2022 is Fire Prevention Week. So this is the public comment section of the Board of Aldermen. At this time, the board will hear citizens who have signed up in the order they were listed that will address City of Branson matters and that the Board of Aldermen can affect. Madam Clerk, do we have any speakers this evening?
Yes, Your Honor. First speaker is Doug Clark, 121A St. Andrews, Branson, Missouri, speaking on UN treaty from the WHO pandemic treaty and Biden's executive order for DoD biotechnology.
Okay, this may sound a little mundane, but I've been preaching about the United Nations is not our helpful leader here in this country. We're our own sovereign decision-making levels of here, and what I find, rather scary about these things is that there are a lot of people that are involved in implementing this stuff all through all levels of government. About a week or so ago, that's about September 14th, Biden put out this executive order stating they will advance biotechnology initiatives for the American economic and national security. Well, if you read through this thing, I think it's about 12 pages long, it tells you that they are going to create genetically altered viruses and germs for warfare purposes, and at the same time, they're going to invent the solution to keep us safe from them if they have to use them on somebody else, So I have a problem with that because they're doing a lot of this research overseas, and that's what Wuhan and part of this war in Ukraine is about. What Putin was upset about there was there are numerous biological labs in Ukraine doing research of this type right now, and that's the first thing he wanted to clean out, and had been warning them forever. Now, the next thing we have here is this pandemic treaty. Okay, you can't pass a treaty without Senate approval. So Senator Ron Johnson from Wisconsin, he's got a Senate bill here to propose that they do not pass that for a variety of reasons. This one that's involved with the World Health Organization. Here's a World Health Organization trying to get total control over the distribution of our healthcare system here for fighting pandemics. They've been trying to do it for quite some time, and this here was dated in 2021. And so what will happen here, if they pass the document, the treaty with this through our Senate, they will be able to override anything that happens. And if we decide we don't like what they're doing here in Branson or in Taney County, they can fine you through the United Nations, and it's all will be approved by a treaty. So right now, what you see here with this is the original framework of this. And when you deal with the United Nations, you usually have a mountainous amount of reading that you do, and finally, they'll finally admit what they're going to do to control things, no matter whether it's a NAFTA treaty or whether it's a international treaty on law, or you name it. It's totally violating every principle of our operation of our country through the system that we have. We can't allow an international body acting like another country coming in here and programming and propagandizing and facilitating a treaty that overrules local control over your own environment here in Branson. And what we had was a sample of that with COVID-19, you know. Same thing, it was basically researched in Hunan, China, with people in our country from Harvard and the University of North Carolina facilitating funding of that research on that particular SARS virus. There isn't any doubt about it. You can go in and look at all the patents and research on the gentlemen that were involved in it. One of them was arrested in 2020, the guy from Harvard, for basically transferring technology, allow the Chinese to have that. And I think that's what the Chinese agreed to do it for, because they wanted to have access to it, because they didn't have the technology to do the gene mutations that they had to do with that particular virus. So when we have a treaty here that's going to affect Branson, if it happens to get ratified, then we need to know, how it is going to affect us. And the only way you're going to know is if you look at the documentation. Instead of listening to the Taney County Health Department tell you what you have to do here in Branson to fight a pandemic. All that stuff there went around all this system that we have, including the federal level. It went straight from the World Health Organization to the CDC, NIH, then to the governors and to the state health departments, and down to this one here. I didn't have nobody asked me if I wanted to get locked down by an international body. So we have to say no. That's the word. That's what Branson can do, is just say no.
30 seconds.
So that next thing that's coming along here that they'd like to get started, and I'll just mention a little bit of it, is a digital transfer of all the financial system to digital currency. They would like to nothing better than to have control over every financial thing that we're going to have do. And the World Economic Forum, which is involved in all this, and all the healthcare, are pushing that to the max. And there are several countries right now that are not using any currency whatsoever. It's all digital formats. And, once that happens, there's a lot of things in the Bible that tells you that's not such a bright idea. You'll have a thing in your skin or wherever they decide they want to have it, and they've already got the patents to do it. They've been doing this for like 30 years, planning all this stuff, and so, we're sitting here whistling Dixie and just not paying attention, I guess. Anyway,
Thank you very much,
that's it for
Don.
tonight.
Madam Clerk? Oh, I'm sorry, Marshall?
Point of order. I don't know if this is a motion that's possible to make, but if it is possible, I would like to make a motion to move the rest of public comment to the end of the meeting for this meeting. Mr. Mayor, I've seen your instructions be disrespected a number of times, and you have to stand up here and continuously take the shots of being the bad guy. And I think it's disrespectful, and so I would like to make that motion if that's possible.
I'll have to defer to Attorney Meadows. If that's possible, that order is in code, is codified, so I'm not sure.
So the order we have here is defined by the city ordinances. Technically, this body could adopt a temporary rule to move it for this meeting, but it would need to adopt so by a supermajority vote, a 2/3 vote, because it would be departing from its standing order. So Marshall can make that motion. If it receives a second, You all could then discuss and debate that motion and then vote on it. But it would need 2/3 of those voting and present to pass. Ruth would count for those numbers, even though she's appearing via Zoom.
Well, Marshall's made a motion. Is there a second?
I'd like to know, can I ask a question?
You can second it, and then we can discuss it.
Oh, I would like to discuss it, so if that's what I need to do.
Then you need to say
I'll
those.
second, yeah.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Oh, there is, by the way, yeah.
Oh.
Like
Of course, the public gets to speak, and the public should speak before the board. Is there anybody in the audience would like to speak to
the
this?
old seagull does.
Yeah, anybody that wants to speak?
Gary Gorman, 350 South Wildwood Drive, apartment D10. I will just speak to your motion. I think it is inconsiderate to the people that are here tonight. If it's something you want to do in the future, I would suggest that would change the ordinance. Also, there are the provisions in there to enforce it. You just got to have the cojones to do it. If I'm not talking about city business, tell me to get off of here. If I've listened to this gentleman, I don't know, for the last year, and I sit there patiently wondering, why doesn't somebody say, hey, we really can't do too much about the United Nations. Now, you can always tie everything in by mentioning the name Branson, but I suggest that if you're going to do this, the more appropriate way to do it would be to pass an ordinance and get it done, or at least put an announcement out in advance.
That's fair.
Thank you very
Thank
much,
you.
Gary.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with
Name.
Gary on that one. Gino Corsi.
Yeah,
I'd have to agree with Gary
Forget
on
it.
that one.
I'm sorry, do you know your name and address, please?
Gino Corsi, 714 State Highway 248.
Thank you.
Yeah, I, along with Gary, I've sat in the audience in person and online, and it seems like every meeting you hear the same people. So I think, with respect to your point, Marshall, I think it's fair to ban the people who keep going against those policies, and the people who do follow them, like me and Gary, I think should be continued allowed to speak. Also keep in mind that some of us work jobs, and a lot of these meetings go till midnight. So putting that public speaking that late, I think you're not hearing the citizens, and I think that's what you guys all ran on.
Yeah,
So.
that's fair, buddy. And, I just want to say this real quick, too. It's like, when we talk about how long these meetings go, it's not just because we don't want to be here or we're bored.
Right.
The longer they go into 5 hours, 6 hours, it makes our decision-making not as good as if we were fresh on just a 2 hour, 3 hour. So it's not even just for our personal, I totally get what you're coming from.
Yeah, and I feel like some of them wouldn't even go that long if you did cut those people that come up here every meeting and talk about things not related to Branson. You'd probably save an hour or two on each meeting. So that's just my 2 cents.
Gino, thank you so much.
Thank you, Gino.
I tend to agree that some of us are very busy.
Name and
Richie
address.
Zates, and it's 12692 Highway 14, Omaha, Arkansas. I also have a business here in town with a physical address here in this town, too, so. And I've been supporting the town and very, first of all, I want to commend all of you for getting us out of the mask and out of the mandates. That was a wonderful experience, seeing that happen for the benefit of our city. And I commend you for that. As far as freedom of speech, we are all entitled to freedom of speech, and I feel like that we should express our freedom of speech. If we don't, we'll no longer have it. This is not an oligarchy. This is not a fascist regime. This is not a communist location. This is the United States of America. We have the right to speak. And the issues which I address are all about Branson. They're all about the safety of the citizens. I really feel it would be important if I could at least have a connection on the website for alternative ideas regarding some of the effects of the vaccinations, which are termed experimental. and from experts which I've convened with.
Richie, let me interrupt if I can. What I've just heard said, and I believe the reason Marshall's making this motion, is, I think an example is, this board cannot do anything about preventing children from receiving COVID vaccinations. I can't be any more clear than that. And so this is a business meeting, and so if you want to address this board for anything that this board can affect, has anything to do with Branson, Missouri, then that's why we want to hear. But I'm hearing there's a lot of pushback of not keeping the topics specifically for this board and this city.
The health and welfare of the citizens of this town is very, very important, and I feel that's life and death. That's not something that we can just...
Can the Board of Aldermen stop the children from getting COVID vaccinations?
We could provide information in your website of some data that has been, accumulated from doctors, from frontline doctors who see the dangers in it. Yes, that could be achieved. That would be wonderful if you would allow an alternative focus on the issue and present it to the public so they can make those decisions. Yes, you have turned things around. You stopped the shutdown. You stop the mask. This city can do a lot of things and helping the public. And, our freedom of religion is stated on our freedom of speech in our
Okay, Richie,
Constitution.
if I can, the topic right now is, the motion that's been made and seconded is, do we want to put the public speaking on the end of the agenda tonight instead of at the beginning of the agenda? And so I want to hear your comments.
No, I don't think you should. I don't think you should. I think you should respect the people that come here. A lot of them are very busy, have heavy-duty schedules, and the public interaction is really for us to promote and secure our freedoms, and also, the government is responsible to the citizens for that. When you take the interaction of the citizens away from our government, then we have the wrong things happening. That's what I'm saying, basically. Okay, so in my case, my heart, my passion. When he was talking about houses burning down, my friend burned and her mom to death because of, they didn't get out of the house. And that caused a lot of emotional turmoil in my life. So, yes, I am concerned about human life, and I feel that it's very important and critical that we maintain our vigil with our Constitution in regards to human life, and also in relationship to the political representation that we have, which is responsible to the citizens. And that's why it's so important to have interaction with the citizens. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, really quick to his point.
Yep.
Several meetings back, Richie had kind of made a presentation, and I told him, I said, if you wanted to be a source of information, produce a website, and he did that. And so my question to you, or even to the board members, would be, if Richie puts himself out as that source of information, is it prudent or is it okay for him to, in public comment, saying, hey, listen, if you're looking for information in Branson, Missouri, here's the website where you can get that information. Please feel free. And that'd be the extent of his comment. I mean, I think a lot of people, I have a personal belief in what I understand based on my education and how I process that. But again, we all have personal freedoms, and we don't want to step on those personal freedoms. But it being okay, and again, I don't know if that's the answer, but if it's okay, like, hey, if you're looking for information, here's where it is. I'm a source in Branson. That's Branson business. That's just being a good steward of the community. So anyway, that's all. That's really all I got to say about that.
Mayor?
Yes.
Can I speak?
Clay.
I think Gary hit it on the head.
Yeah.
And I didn't know this was going to happen. Marshall just made the motion. But I believe it was to deter, and here's the deal, it ain't that I disagree with Doug or Richie, I mean, I agree. I don't think babies should be getting vaccines. And a lot of the stuff Doug says, I get it. However, as the mayor has stated, what can we do about that? Nada. So if the motion is to deter us from sitting, because the mayor has asked several times, please only bring things that we can do something about, and it continues to happen time and time again, if the motion is to deter that from happening because, you know, they probably won't sit around 4 or 5 or 6 hours to speak, then I think Gary's suggestion is correct. Let's keep it at the front so that the citizens that do have something that we can do something about, we don't squash that so that they can still have that opportunity, and you just, somehow you have to enforce what you've requested time and time again. So that's why I would be against moving it to the end, just because it would deter people that have legitimate concerns and questions by doing that. So I'd be against it just for that, but I agree. We just have to get firm, and that's a tough spot for him because he's not the bad guy. He's the leader that has to enforce it, unfortunately.
Yeah, and after hearing Gino and Gary, I'm going to be voting no on my own motion. But the point of the matter is that this is the only way in the actual order of Robert's Rules of Order that we could do this, because
No, you're right.
I just don't think the mayor should continue to be viewed as the bad guy of
Yeah.
this and has to say it every single time. We've said UN is not in the purview, okay? It's just flat out, it's just not it. I find it very ironic when we're handed the Constitution, and yet they think a local municipal government can do anything about vaccines, this and that. So this is a deterrent that other cities have used. Maybe it's something that we've said, okay, like sometimes people ruin it for the others, you know? This time, I'm going to be voting no, but I just wanted to bring it up as an option going forward, that if we can't get it under control, you got to put in your time just like we put in our time, kind of thing. So.
No, I'm glad you did. I mean, I'm glad we had the discussion, for sure.
Ruth, do you have any comments?
We have lost her. We dropped it.
She's having some connectivity issues, so she's going to try to reconnect in just a moment.
Fine.
So just in conclusion, for me,
Yeah.
again, I think the voice of our residents is probably the most powerful thing that we could hear. And I think it's incumbent to probably keep that at the forefront because, you know, obviously that's when we have the biggest audience. That's when we have the biggest viewership online. Like, we want those messages. We want everybody to be heard. So for me, I'll be voting against it also just because I think it should be at the forefront of our meeting. And it
Okay.
flows a lot better.
Chuck, any comments? Okay. We have a motion and a second. No further discussion. Roll call vote.
Denham, and we have, I'm going to show her absent.
Yep.
Cooper,
No.
Rodriguez,
No.
Howden,
No.
LeBlanc.
No.
That failed 0-4.
Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, do we have any other speakers?
Your Honor, our next speaker is Richie Zates, 12692 Highway 14 West, Omaha, Arkansas, speaking on human rights.
I think it's critical, not just for my sake, but for everyone's sake, that we maintain the First Amendment in all of our actions, which was written for our safety, and that we will have no one stifling our freedom of speech. And the citizens are the ones that really are governing body, because they elect the people that go into office. And I feel it's critical that we maintain a vigil for the safety of the citizens, ensure domestic tranquility, and provide a common defense. But it says the just powers from the consent of the governed, which is us. We're the ones that make the decisions about who will sit in offices. We're the ones that decide who will be the next candidate, because we get behind those folks to see them in office. I commend you for the things that you have done. And again, I would like to, on record, say that we do have an information location that is nomorejab.wordpress.com. And these are people that have risked their lives to defend human life. And there's nothing more precious than human life. And we can't just turn a deaf ear to it. I've lost, personally, quite a few friends. And we're not here because we're antagonistic against anyone. You asked me if you should run, I said you should. I support those people, and I'm faithful to those people that I work with. And we had a whole line of people with red shirts standing outside saying we don't want to be under oppression, stifled here in this city. And I'm asking you guys to stand like warriors against any governmental intrusion into our freedoms here. They're trying to impose masks again in California, just let you know. So I am so thankful for this city. I've been here since 2007. I have multitude of friends that we're all growing up together with, we're all getting older with. And God is watching over this city. It's a very special place. It's supernatural. And Tori Ken Boone talked about it. It will be a refuge, and we're getting into the last moments of this arena and this journey. So that's really all I am concerned about, is life. Your life is important to me as well. Babies, pregnant women having miscarriages. We've got all kinds of data. Whatever it takes to maintain our freedom here in this country. I'm asking you to honor that. Our Constitution says we have the right to free speech. We should use it. If we don't, we'll lose it. Thank you.
Thank you, Richie. Madam Clerk, any other speakers tonight?
Our next speaker is W. Alex McCauley, 200 Box Elder Lane, Forsyth, speaking on simple solutions for large issues.
W. Alex McCauley from 200 Box Elder Lane, Forsyth. I work in Branson as an independent contractor. I also ran as presiding commissioner this past year. I'm glad that Nick Plummer got won the primary. Thank you very much for having us speak at the beginning. That was a very good decision. What we should be regarding this meeting as is a sovereign council, where you're sovereigns. Council with you as to what we as a city can do to make sure that local trade stays regular, and that we can do business without taking the lives of others. And that is exactly what we've been trying to do with these pandemic regs. We know that there's very little that local government can do about it, aside from the fact that you do have an engine called the business permit that could allow you to make sure that those that do infringe on the right to life in their business dealings are temporarily put out of business so that they can rethink what they're doing. We can also do that as far as ESG is concerned. stealing people's money because they don't believe but businesses who steal from other people cannot be allowed to function within the local economy. Now, this is where I'm going with this one, and I want to make this as short as possible. So that is a solution that you are totally capable of that can be implemented on all of these issues that we've been bringing up. Thank you very much for hearing me out this.
Thank you, Alex. Appreciate you. Madam Clerk?
Our next speaker is Gary Groman, 350 South Wildwood Drive, speaking on, "It does not require many words to tell the truth."
Come down to it.
I'll ban you.
In his plea to the U.S. government to allow its people to return to their land in the Pacific Northwest, Chief Joseph said, "It does not require many words to speak the truth." In perspective, that quote was an effort to show that two different groups, Indigenous Americans and white people, could get along and understand each other. That philosophy seems appropriate with the current CVB, MOC, and Branson Board of Aldermen marketing conundrum. I can't pronounce that word. That's it. In this vein, it is in this vein that I would share some truths and aha moments from last night's meeting. One, among other things, the October 2021 city resolution on Ozark Mountain Christmas very clearly designates Ozark Mountain Christmas as the official name for this community-wide Christmas event, and states that entities utilizing the city tourism tax dollars for marketing will continue to use that name and promote Ozark Mountain Christmas whenever and wherever possible. I believe that it is the truth that anyone reading that resolution, let alone those receiving millions of dollars to market the city, is insane to stand in front of this board saying what was said last night. Words to the effect that they didn't realize it was the intent of the resolution to take marketing to another level. It was a miscommunication. The MOC and other marketing people did not recognize it as something that had to be added to the creative. Of course they did, but for whatever reason, they just ignored it. I believe that it is a truth that the Missouri Revised Statutes authorizing Branson's tourism tax does not prohibit the use of tourism tax dollars for administrative expenses or for the creative part of marketing Branson. In fact, I believe that the word administrative is only mentioned twice, none of which relates to such a prohibition, and the word creative is not mentioned at all. 3, had an aha moment when the TCD Marketing Advisory Committee was mentioned time after time. That aha moment tells me that the possible resolution of the problem lies with the TCD and its MOC. As a suggestion, why not work with the TCD to develop an MOC appointed by the boards of those who pay the TCD tax? One scenario would be an 11-person board with appointees made by the Village of Indian Point, Stone County, Taney County, and the City of Branson in proportion to the amount of TCD taxes or marketing taxes each pays. 4, I believe it is a truth that the effective marketing of Branson has to be based on the desires of our prospective visitors and not Branson's residents. 5, I believe that Alderman Clay Cooper and Marshall Howden are 100% accurate when they speak about the intangible values that they believe attract people to Branson: faith, family, and flag. I had another aha moment as I considered how much those intangibles add to visitors to a visitor's Branson experience, such as our shows, attractions, lakes, shopping, and everything else that Branson does. Especially at Ozark Mountain Christmas, I believe that those intangibles should not be something that we shy away from, but should be significantly featured in our marketing. 6, I believe that Ozark Mountain Christmas is one of the few places in America where people can come to celebrate the traditional American Christmas. All the fun, excitement, entertainment Branson is noted for, along with celebrating the reasons for the season, the birth of the Christ child. There's something for everyone's belief if they just want to have fun and be entertained. But those who are offended by such a celebration might want to go somewhere else to celebrate Christmas. Any questions?
Any questions or comments?
Very, very well said.
Thank you, Gary. Madam Clerk?
That's all of our speakers.
Okay, thank you. Next is the consent agenda. Are there any items on the consent agenda that any member of the audience would like to have pulled down for comment or questions? Any members of the board? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, would you read the consent agenda, please?
Your Honor, the items on the consent agenda are as follows. Approval of the Board of Aldermen minutes for the September 27th, 2022 joint meeting and September 27th, 2022 regular meeting. Acknowledge receipt of Planning Commission minutes for the May 3rd, 2022 and June 7th, 2022 regular meetings. Acknowledge receipt of Advisory Park Board minutes for the August 16th, 2022 meeting. Final reading of Bill Number 6199, an ordinance accepting the proposal of Central Salt LLC for de-icing salt and authorize the mayor to execute the contract. Final reading of Bill Number 6200, an ordinance approving the contract with Schulte Supply Incorporated for the purchase of a valve maintenance trailer and exerciser and authorizing the mayor to execute the contract. Final reading of Bill Number 6201, an ordinance approving the contract with Exxon Enterprise Incorporated for Taser 7 Conducted Energy Weapon Program, and authorizing the mayor to execute the contract. Final reading of Bill Number 6202, an ordinance amending the adopted 2022 budget for the city of Branson to adjust monies in the general fund for an increase in legal services. Final reading of Bill Number 6203, an ordinance approving the contract with Kutak Rock LLP for various legal services and authorizing the mayor to execute the contract. Your Honor, that concludes the reading of the consent agenda.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Do I have a motion to?
So move, I didn't know it was, yeah, so move, sorry.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. You want to do roll call vote? So Madam
Right.
Clerk, you want to do roll call vote?
Yes.
Thank you.
And Alderman Denham is still absent.
Okay?
Cooper,
Yes.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Howden,
Yes.
LeBlanc.
Yes.
That passes 4-0, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Your Honor, the next item is a presentation and overview of the pay-for-performance agreement with the Branson Airport LLC.
Good evening, Mayor, Board of Aldermen. You all had asked me to bring a presentation and provide you some information on the agreements between the city of Branson and the Branson Airport. This came up at a meeting in early June when the city received its biannual bill from the Airport Authority. The airport had asked the city at that time for $34,000. That bill was based on some contracts the city entered into back in 2006. So we have looked into this issue, and I'm just going to break it down into some of its major parts, and we can drill down on any areas you're more concerned or any member of the public is more concerned about. This contract involves what's known as the Branson Airport. This is the airport located south of Hollister along 65 that was built in around 2007, 2008. It is on real estate owned by Taney County. That real estate is in turn leased to a special governmental organization called the Taney County Airport Development Transportation District. We abbreviate that as TDD for short. It then leases the airport to an organization known as Branson Airport LLC. Most of us know Branson Airport LLC as the developer of the project. When the project was started, it was stated that it was going to be the first the first privately funded commercial airport in the United States. Well, you can see kind of how that worked out, but it's not entirely privately funded. Of the development costs, around $40 million, and these are broad terms, was paid by private equity firms. Another $120 million was paid by bonds being issued by the TDD. The city of Branson, in order to support the airport, entered into an agreement on August 1st of 2006. Under that agreement, the city agreed to pay for every passenger that comes into the Branson airport on either a charter or commercial flight, $8.24 apiece. Now, there's a fairly complicated calculus on that, but that's the general essence of how it breaks down. The airport and the city early on got in some disputes about what that term meant, and those original payments were to go to the operator of the airport, Branson Airport LLC. The city had some serious concerns that under the agreement that it couldn't be paying to a private entity for a private entity's services. So in 2010, the agreement was renegotiated. The city still kept the payments at $8.24 an inbound passenger, meaning someone who gets off the plane here in Branson. But the agreement was renegotiated to where instead of being paid to the Branson Airport LLC, that money is being paid twice a year to the TDD. And under the contract, the TDD is required to use those funds solely to pay off the bonds that were issued to build the infrastructure. So the runway, the airport buildings, those rather extensive roads that run out to the airport. Under that agreement, the amount the city has to pay per year is capped at $2 million. Apparently, there was concern back in 2010 that the city might have to pay a large amount. Well, I can tell you that it has never, as far as I've been able to find and been looked through this today, ever amounted to more than a few $100,000 a year. I think maybe one year we approached $1 million. After Southwest Airlines pulled out in 2014, usage of the airport collapsed, to be perfectly blunt about it. And the average amount over the last few years that the city has had to pay is around $40,000. We get those bills every 6 months. The next one is in fact going to be due on October 30th. We then have the opportunity to audit their data. So we get a chance to look at the publicly available sources they use to get the estimates of the number of people that fly in on commercial airplanes or charter. And they have to make records available to the city's auditor if anyone wants to check that out as well. Contract runs for 30 years. It runs from the date the airport opens. The airport opened May 10, 2009. So that means we have 17 more years, more or less, running on the contract. It runs till 2039 to May 11 of 2039. That's the basics of the arrangement. Just some quick back of the envelope numbers that Ben was able to put together for us today. The last bill we received was $35,110. And over the life of this agreement since 2009, the city has paid to the TDD $3,328,000. All that money has been used, at least since the agreement in 2010, to pay the costs on the bonds that the airport was built with. I believe those bonds are held by an investment bank, and frankly, my understanding is there has never been, since at least 2014, enough money to pay on those bonds. So while the city's money is helping pay them, they are not being paid off very quickly. So those bonds are probably in default or at least underperforming. Do you all have any questions? There's a ton more details on this we can get into, and I'm happy to mention any of them, but I also don't want to bore everyone to death with them.
Thank you, Jim. Are there any questions from anybody in the audience? Any questions from members of the board?
This is another head scratcher for me.
So Jim, are we locked into this contract for the next 17 years? Is that what you're saying?
So Marshall, the only ways we can get out of this well, there are three different ways we could get out of this contract. The first would be, it is subject to appropriations by the board. The board could choose not to appropriate the money. If the board chose not to appropriate the money, we would, and there is language in the contract that allows us to make that decision. Frankly, it's required by state law. I do believe if we do that, we will probably face a lawsuit from either the airport, the TDD, or the bondholders. I'd feel more comfortable discussing with everyone in private what I think our chances would be on that lawsuit. But we do have the option to vote each year not to approve the money. So when this new bill comes up, Marshall, October 30th, it is possible to vote against it. There just might be collateral consequences of that one way or the other. The second option is if the airport breaches the agreement in any substantive manner. Now, the obligations on the airport are pretty slim. They just have to be operating as a commercial airport. There is a clause in here that says if they cease having commercial or charter flights for a period where they have it less than 14 days in any one quarter, the agreement can terminate. They have not reached that standpoint yet, but I mean, that's always a possibility if Frontier were to pull out and the charter flights that come in were to pull out. So there is a possibility there. And then the third option for terminating something like this would be if we wanted to challenge the validity of the agreement originally. Should have it been made? Is this the proper type of an agreement? That would require potentially litigation and some extensive litigation or negotiation. So there are three legitimate options to terminate this agreement. Two would almost immediately result in litigation. And I cannot say at the moment whether we would be successful with that litigation or not. The second depends on the airport defaulting in its performance. As far as I've been able to tell so far, they have not fallen below that required level. But I will say it's gotten kind of close a few times where that has been a risk.
So in hearing the numbers tonight, it doesn't make me think we're losing a whole bunch on this. Yeah, I mean.
Yeah, but, I mean, the last bill was 35 grand, but for a total, it's 3.3 million. And it, a little at a time adds up when you throw in statues here and fountain maintenance here and $8 a head here, and it's like, I just some of the.
So I have maybe one other question.
Yeah. I just don't understand.
Jim, I have maybe one other question. Is there any way that we could amend this agreement to put in some kind of, I don't even know how you would do this, but some kind of way that we could count the individuals that actually come to Branson from the airport, as opposed to, say, going to Ridgedale, for example?
So the way the agreement is phrased now, it only counts those individuals who land at the airport. And there is a clause in there that makes sure it takes out people who, like, say, a flight would originate in Springfield or something like that and land at the airport. The problem is it just takes visitors to the Branson area. We would have to renegotiate the contract to determine where those people land. And as a practical matter, Marshall, I don't know if there is publicly available data that we could use to know where people go.
But what you're saying, Jim, is if they they land and get off that plane, we're paying them, doesn't matter where they're going.
Correct. And I want to make it worse for you. I'm not meaning to make it worse, but if you read the contract, let's say that I book a ticket on Frontier, I fly to Denver for business, go out there for a few days, I come back. You don't pay when I leave, but you would pay $824 for my return trip because I would fit in those numbers of a person flying inbound to the city of Branson.
I remember when this all happened, and I was just, even then, I was just like, what? I mean, here we are, but this is just one more of those things that we pull back the covers, just like,
And to be fair, the board in 2010 had serious concerns about the situation, but we can't get into it at the moment. But suffice it to say, they renegotiated the contract because of those concerns. So you are not the first board to be concerned about this agreement.
Ralph?
And I guess kind of echoing Clay's comment, you know, it's just like every board meeting we have, it's like our city is just getting fleeced little by little, you know, with old contracts and developer agreements and all those things. And you know, to bring these to light, I think is just, it's important because, you know, a lot of history's happened since then. And when we find these things out, it's like, wow, how did this happen? What was the mindset back then? And you know, you can kind of look at $824 per inbound person as, well, that's pretty cheap marketing if you're looking at it from a marketing perspective to gain it. But now here we are many years later, and you know, it's, wow, like, that's a lot of money.
well, if I took my alderman hat off and I was just a citizen, which I am,
Right.
and I just heard discussion about raising our sewer and water
Right.
rates, I'd be going,
That's exactly.
now, wait a minute.
Exactly.
You're gonna raise my rates, but yet we're
yet-
paying this here, and we're paying that there, and we're paying this here. Quit being careless with our money, and I won't have to pay more for my water.
Exactly, yeah. And
That's what I'd be saying.
That's what I was wrapping that back around to, is that we're not bringing this up to pick on people. It's like, this is why we have to make hard decisions when it comes to a water bill, because that wasn't thought of back then. And now here we are down the road, and here we are giving money away, and away, and away.
And then asking the citizens to,
pay back, yeah. It's hard.
Actually, there is public
Yeah, I
comment.
think we just skipped because we asked questions to Jim, so.
Oh, so, since the board took cuts, is there anybody in the audience who wish to comment on this matter?
Bobby Wydeen, 120 Quail Road, Branson. You know, you're talking about paying out this money, but every one of us, every time we go out for dinner, or we go to a movie, or we see a show, or whatever we do in Branson, even though we live here, we pay that tourism tax. When I worked at the YMCA and ran the summer camp, we happened to get free tickets to, I think it was the Hughes brothers. Mrs. Hughes called and wanted to give us free tickets, but we still had to pay the darn tourism tax. So we're still paying for other people to go play with our money. Just like you're saying that you're giving away money to the airport for them to play with. So isn't that tourism tax going for part of that?
Is the tourism tax going to the airport?
I mean, when it comes into the big scheme of things?
I don't know if you want to hear the answer to that. Or I'd ask you to rephrase it.
So,
Kathy, Lisa, Ben, the monies that are paid to the airport, do those monies come out of the tourism tax fund? Don't say that. For those listening, I asked Ben with Baker Tilly, and he responded, yes.
So, I mean, the citizens are getting fleeced enough, if you think about it.
I believe that was Alderman Cooper's point, and I believe the board pretty much agrees with that.
So, you know, if we look at that, it's, you know, we're paying to have that convenience for the locals, but Frontier doesn't, I mean, you have to go through Denver to go anywhere, so you're kind of stuck. So-
Bobby, I think you raised some excellent points. In fact, you do raise excellent points. It is so fair to ask the government, before you raise my fees, are you being prudent and diligent with all the dollars we're already paying? Very fair question. Should be answered, right, upfront and honest. I can assure you, and I think if it's been witnessed, this board is very transparent and very open. We will clearly admit the sins. Unfortunately, some of these decisions obviously were done years
Long time
ago.
ago.
However, we're willing to address them, acknowledge them, and yeah, just think about how we are gonna feel when we go ask the residents to increase their water rates, right? Would you ask
Well, it
them
would
for
just
them?
be my sewer rate, it wouldn't be my water rate, but
Okay,
that's
so you're not in
okay.
the water, yeah, you're not.
I'm District
Branson
3.
water. Well, while you're there, the amount of money you pay for water district number 3, would you mind sharing what a monthly bill is with water district number 3?
You want me to try to remember that? It's probably somewhere between $35 and $45 a month,
Okay,
which, coming from a Chicago suburb,
yeah. I just wanted to put that in perspective. Kendall, our average water rate for residential is, throw out a number, $10? $12. So that's another example of the residents within the city of Branson that receive city water that we're talking about. They're paying in the $12, $15 range. You're in Water District 3 and you're paying $35, right? So thank you for bringing this up. There's, unfortunately, in my opinion, if we try to do anything with this contract, instant litigation, right?
oh, yeah. And then you're just really pissing money into the wind.
Except we have a very affordable attorney. Did you get that, Jim?
Get that recorded?
But thank you for bringing this up. Is there anybody else in the audience have any comments or questions? Oh, yes, Alex. Is it Alex? Yeah, okay.
Alex McCauley. Anyway, I find that a lot of the things that I hear at these meetings are things that the people ought to be doing for themselves versus what the city should be doing for them. And for instance, subsidizing an airport, really, what your responsibility is to make sure that the person maintaining the airport, AKA the CEO, is doing what he needs to be doing. It's not to provide him money to maintain the airport. And the thing is, we've gotten way too dependent on you guys, and it increases your workload versus if we, as business owners, take that workload off of you, you would be able to do your work better. Anyway, that's my point.
Alex, thank you very much. Anybody else in the audience, questions or comments? Ruth, any questions or comments?
No, Mayor, not at this time, thanks.
Thank you. Any, Marshall, go ahead.
Okay, so, but they did amend the contract in 2010, right?
Yes.
So I think at the bare minimum, what we should do, because again, there's no way that you can determine whether someone comes to Branson or not, but you could determine a round trip ticket that started in Branson.
If I'm not, excuse me, Marshall, if I'm not mistaken, Jim, my understanding in that agreement was the deplanements that have a local zip code as an address are not charged to the city.
Well, Mayor, that is what I thought the deal was as well. Okay, you and I had the same memory on that, but when I look at the 2010 agreement, what it actually specifies that you do, and it's a fairly complex formula, is you go in and you use some reports that are filed with the FFA and that are also filed with the Department of Transportation, and you pull the reports for total volume. You then subtract out everyone that got on a plane in Branson. Well, the problem with that is that still leaves the leg of someone who came from Branson but is returning. So like you, Mayor, I thought that was the intention, and that may be how the airport has conducted itself, but that does not appear to be in the 2010 language.
Okay, so how does the board feel it's worthy to ask Ben, maybe when we get through budget season, to take a look at their next reporting that they submit? Did you do that, Ben? Thank you very much. Any other questions, comments from the board? Okay, Madam Clerk?
Your Honor, the next item is a resolution approving a special event permit application for the Veterans Day Parade.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the board. Veterans Parade Special Event 22-00019. Applicant was Richard Barkhalter on behalf of Branson Veterans American Chapter 913. Their request is a parade on November 11th, so 11/11 at 11, so it's pretty easily rememberable for you. Set up at 7 a.m., breakdown at 3 p.m., approximately 5,000 guests. I took these pictures off of their website, so. Event location is downtown, as you all know. Special event falls under section 9465, and I had some of the questions just like is the education point, is there's a level 1, a level 2, and a level 3. Why did this fall to a level 3 event? Part of it was because of the amount of people and the street closures that'll be involved in there. The level 3 temporary closures are South Sycamore Street, Price Street, East Long Street, Branson Landing Boulevard, Commercial Street, and East College Street within the downtown area, so there'll be a little bit of disruption that the police have reviewed. Proposed staffing costs to the city are $13,819. Just a reminder that the cost for the event is expected to be that amount, and 94-65H gives you the option to recoup if you choose. Staff recommends approval. Happy to answer any questions.
Michael, so what is the, what fees are going to be charged for this event?
So far, it's $65 plus they paid a convenience fee, which is a credit card fee, and $510 because it's level 3 event. So their total would be $575 plus or minus the credit card fees, if approved.
Any questions, comments from the audience?
Your Honor, could we get a motion on the floor, please?
No, we're going to discuss it first.
I'll make a motion.
We have a motion.
Second.
A motion is second. We had a staff report. I think we're doing this one backwards. And now we'll listen to questions or comments from the audience. Thank you, Lisa.
So did I hear you correctly, Mike, that the permit fee was $575? That is correct. Okay, because I couldn't find that in the staff report of exhibits. So thank you for that. Good evening. My name is Cherry Webster. I live at 118 Country Bluff Drive. Before I comment on the parade, I'd like to say to Administrator Stepp, welcome. It is so good to see you sitting on the dais. And may those of you who don't yet know you, like some of us do, we would hope that they would come to see you the way the residents of Country Bluff have seen you. We had the opportunity to experience your listening skills when we were dealing with the adjoining developers' circumventions of procedures. Mr. Gerard also had experienced your empathy when he struggled to get a special use permit for his business. And the planning commissioners had an opportunity to observe how you articulate decision-making processes, especially those that are controversial. So may you have a long and successful tenure here and be the city administrator that we really need.
Jerry, don't make me cut you off for not staying on topic.
As for the parade, I wanted to present an opportunity for you to add a tad more transparency, but you preempted me. I looked at the expenses, and it wasn't just for this parade, but the next agenda item as well. So you're looking at $13,000, $17,000. It didn't mention the actual permit fees, but last year this time, we had a big to-do about waive fees, waive building permit fees. The result was the assistant administrator prepared a report of 3 years of all kinds of waived fees, and the parade fees weren't on that report. But Mr. Dobbins, the former city administrator, did make a comment at the December 14th, 2021 Alderman hearing that they had been waived in the past. So I was just going to ask, what are the fees, and are they going to be waived again? I'm not saying waive them or don't waive them. I'm not taking a stance as to whether they should be waived or paid. I just wanted them to be presented as part of the overall expenses that the city might be contributing towards the parades, not just the police and the public works.
Thank you for asking that. And the proper answer is really a lengthy one. We've had a couple meetings over the last couple boards about what to do with event fees. And my personal opinion is we were deciding at the time whether we want to raise those event fees to cover city cost. And my position was I want us to encourage event planners and promoters to come to Branson and have their events, because the amount of tax revenue that's generated in the city is 1,000 times more than that event fee.
Sure.
So if we raise the fee, I think we're discouraging potential events. The board at the time voted to raise those event fees. And there was some discussion about we were going to raise the event fees. There was discussion about waiving the fees for Veterans and Adoration Parade.
Yes.
Apparently that didn't win, or we wouldn't have event fees. Do you recall, Lisa?
Correct. It's the actual fees are in the code.
Yeah.
That's what Michael's referring to, I believe.
Yeah. So you're raising, I'm not sure which question you're raising.
Well,
Yeah.
there were two questions. One was the fees didn't look like they were part of the expenses that were presented in the staff report. It was just the police and the public works, and I was assuming you were going to waive the permitting fees, the event permit fees, and just, it should be included as part of your evaluation. And then the second one, which I really hadn't said yet, last year when we went through the whole to-do with waive fees, the accounting system, Mr. Ben, didn't have the capability to account for waive fees, and waive fees are revenue that's given away before it's collected, and there was no mechanism to track that lost revenue. And that's a side issue here, and maybe it's something that Mr. Ben could find a solution for in the future.
Michael, do you want to address her first question? Thank you, Cherry.
So the fees that we put on the bottom is actual staff time fees that's, you could tonight say, whatever parade it was, the $17,319.46 could be added to them if you chose that. You haven't in the past, so we just acknowledge, here's the breakdown, here's the cost of the city. That is your gift that you're giving to the parade. So the actual fees for review time is spread out throughout the whole departments, the police department, and they helped us break down the cost of what their time looks like and how many vehicles, police officers, so on and so forth. I believe there were like 22 vehicles, police vehicles that were on there. There's a drone, there's a mobile command center. They put a lot of effort into it, and a lot of effort for Public Works goes into it almost a full day. So that's where those costs come from, and that's how it's figured department by department, so.
Yeah, and I know when we had those previous discussions, and I honestly don't know what the math was, but I'm going to venture to guess, in exchange for those costs to the city, there were north of $50,000 of tax revenue or $100,000 of tax revenue generated because of that event. Thank you, Michael. Marshall, do you have something?
Yeah, Michael, you're saying there are fees, but it's our decision. We could make a motion as a board to apply those fees. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely.
Right,
So
right.
that is your choice. So the staff is bringing to you what we believe the cost will be, and that they have it down really tight. So what it is for police services and public works services, each department member underneath their department head gives us that number, and then we throw that into the report. So you'll see it's gone up over the years.
You're on.
Yes.
I'm sorry. I think it, just to be a little clearer, the fees, true fees are outlined in the code. These are overhead costs, so they're not really fees being waived.
That's right. Those are costs to the
Those
city.
are just costs, and it's an option if you want to apply the costs. You're not waiving anything.
Correct.
Just just to be a little clear about.
Yeah, so we're not being asked to waive the fee, the permit fee, which is $500.
Right. About 510 for level 3.
Yeah, 510. So what's on the agenda is to approve the parade.
To approve the special use permit.
Did I answer?
Yeah, you did.
Okay, perfect. It's 94-65H is where the option to recoup the cost to the city is where that lives for you all.
Larry, for
Yes,
clarity,
thank you.
that's because it's been going back for 3 years, and you and
Yeah,
I have
sure.
always been on the same page on this. We always had the 500. Joel was proposing to charge these costs at one point when he was still around, and there was some pushback saying these are so important to us, you know. And listen, I hear what you're saying, and I appreciate you bringing that point up because it's the same thing we said when the other things. It's like, okay, if there's going to be a TIF or what, but just codify it. Maybe we look forward into the future of saying that these two are special to the city, and maybe we do go through a formal process of that, of saying we're not going to charge these excess. So it is not just us saying that or us, you know, I mean, it's a little bit more formalized is what Cherry's saying, but I'm absolutely in favor of Adoration Parade, Veterans Parade being, you know, let go, grandfathered in, so to speak, so.
Any further discussion from the board?
I agree with you, Marshall.
You're agreeing that later we should address waiving the fees for veterans and adoration?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, these are so important and to the community and the revenue it brings that is it worth charging them $500? I mean,
I believe you would have the opportunity to make a motion as we approve this to also waive the fees if he chose. Is that right, Lisa?
It would be, I defer to Attorney Meadows, I believe we would be similar to the motion that we had earlier. Am I correct?
Amend it?
Attorney Meadows?
So yes, it would be.
Because
an
you're,
amendment.
you are waiving fees that are in code.
Mayor, could I just get a clarification?
Sure.
What I was hearing was we weren't talking about waiving the fee, like the permit fee necessarily. We were just, you wanted to formalize that we wouldn't go back at a future date and try to add on the cost of the overhead for the actual day of the event to the city.
That's correct,
Did I
yeah.
hear that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
What the motion is second is to approve the special use permit for the parade.
Yeah.
That's what we're
Yeah.
currently voting on.
Because that was the compromise.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Okay.
So we have a motion and a second. Let's vote.
Denham,
Yes.
Cooper,
Yes.
Rodriguez. Yes. Howden.
Yes.
LeBlanc.
Yes.
That passes 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Your Honor, the next item is a resolution approving a special event permit application for Branson's Adoration Parade.
We'll now get a staff report from Mike. Thank you, Michael.
Absolutely. So different parade, same area. Applicant was Grant Sloan on behalf of the Branson Lakes Area Chamber of Commerce. This is the 74th Annual Branson Adoration Parade and Lighting Ceremony. Applicant's request was parade on Sunday, December 4th, 2022, set up at 2 p.m. and breakdown at 9 p.m., approximately 4,000 guests. Again, downtown, I even changed up the picture for you, took another Google for you. 9465 special events. This was classified as a level 3, although they didn't hit 5,000. They did hit some of the other requirements with public safety and staffing beyond their normal operations, so that's why it went to a level 3. Temporary closure, again, same streets, so Sycamore Street, Price Street, East Long Street, Branson Landing Boulevard, Commercial Street in each college in the downtown area. The pros route is the same route that's been successful for many, many years for y'all. So proposed costing staff down in the bottom again is $17,319. Staff recommends approval. We're happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Thank you, Michael. Any questions from members of the audience?
Motion, please.
Brother. Entertain a motion to approve this.
So moved.
Second.
Ralph, seconded.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. We've heard a report from Michael. Are there any questions, comments from the audience? Any questions, comments from the board? Hearing none, let's vote.
Denham,
Yes.
Cooper,
Yes.
Rodriguez. Yes. Howden.
Yes.
LeBlanc.
Yes.
That passes 5-0. Thank you. Your Honor, the next item is a resolution adopting park user fees for the Parks and Recreation Department.
We'll now have a staff report from Cindy Shepherd.
Mr. Mayor, members of the board, this resolution adopts park user fees for 2023. The proposed fee schedule addresses increased fiscal demand to sustain the current level of service and a similar level of subsidy from the general fund. Parks has incorporated the 2023 projected revenues and expenses into the department's fee schedule. The fee schedule is being recommended, or fee adjustments are being recommended in the following areas to maintain adequate revenue and fund maintenance and operations. They are youth program fees,
Cindy,
adult team fees. Yes, sir.
Excuse me just a minute. Chad, is there a page we can put up here that? Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I will.
I'm sorry, Cindy.
Oh, it's okay.
I just wanted people to be able to see it as you're sharing.
You got it, Chad. It's the staff report, and there's a attachment with the fees. There you go. There's also a survey, too. I was going to get to that. So the areas that are being recommended for adjustments are, you can see the major categories, the youth program fees, also adult team fees. There's aquatic fees, rentals, and membership fees. So those are fees in various areas that are being recommended for adjustment. The proposed fee increases for 2023 are estimated to bring in an additional $90,500 to the Branson Parks and Recreation Department, and those revenue projections are based on 2022 rental and facility totals. A survey has been attached that shows fees from area parks departments. It's something we always look at and kind of compare. You want to be similar to the market. Additionally, the attached fee schedule outlines the recommended 2023 fees. The Advisory Park Board voted to support and recommend the fee changes to the Board of Aldermen for their approval. Staff recommends approval of the bill, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Let's take a look at the, Chad, the survey, the comparisons that Cindy put together. There you go.
Can you make it bigger, Chad?
A little hard to.
Can you go to the top, or?
I'm at the top.
If you can see that on your iPad. So we survey all the communities around, particularly our neighbors, Ozark, Republic, Nixa, Willard, and Springfield. So those are the main areas that we talk to. Every year we call them and kind of talk to them about what you're doing with youth sports and rentals and the pool, just to make sure we're kind of in line with what other people are doing. So that's really important. And of course, the biggest consideration is, what does it cost to run these things? So you want the main users of the programs to pay for them. So we're not asking someone who doesn't use youth baseball to subsidize that operation. So if that kind of makes sense.
Yep.
I don't know if you can see
So
those
when I
very
looked
well.
at these fees, how it compared to our neighboring municipalities, and with the, you said that you're projecting based on 2022 attendance, about $90,000 additional revenue.
Yes, that's correct.
I would also assume that you will have $90,000 of additional expense with the chlorine and all the increases.
Yes, we don't fully cover. I mean, we're subsidized to the
Yeah.
tune, I'm talking about, maintaining the same level of subsidy, and our subsidy, I think, is projected for 2023 at $810,000.
I just wanted the public to know that by increasing these fees, you're not doing it to increase profits or revenue. You're trying to just offset the increased cost, even though there's still going to be subsidies.
Sure, I think Ben would tell you we don't make a profit
Yeah.
just at the campground.
I just wanted the
Yeah.
community to know that this isn't a revenue generator. Okay. Any questions, comments from the audience? What, did we motion yet?
No, you didn't motion.
What is it with me tonight?
Something's off.
I'm hungry is what it is. Okay. We need a motion and a second.
So move.
Second.
Cindy, would you repeat your presentation?
Sure.
Are there any questions, comments from the audience? Yes, Alex.
My question is, Parks and Recreation seems to me like it, and this was actually one of the things I ran on as commissioner, is any county properties, campgrounds and so forth. But I believe that most of the campground facilities and everything that we own as government should actually be being maintained by private entrepreneurship. And the thing is, it drains on the public resources to maintain these facilities when we could be, as the people, maintaining them through profit. Anyway, that's just my point, and the fact that, once again, this is something that bloats your guys' responsibility out of being able to actually do it. Should we consider maybe turning this into a source of revenue by selling these to private
Privatize these, yeah. Thank you for that point. And there's the balance of privatizing it, which takes the burden and the expense off of the taxpayers. And then the quality of life that the city government feels that we owe our community And as Cindy has said, these, the city continues to subsidize these, except for the campground.
We do. I think, most of the things we subsidize are non-revenue producing areas. So,
Sure,
I mean,
sure.
the things that you see up here, we're wanting to recover a majority of the costs. That's what we're trying to do, not to make a profit, but to definitely cover the cost of the operation. I think the most areas in their non-revenue producing are parks and trails
That's
and
right.
things that we don't have an opportunity for revenue.
Yeah. So these are designed where the taxpayers don't have the burden of these fees. The people that actually play the softball and go to the swimming pools and play soccer, they're the ones that are using it and they're the ones that are paying for it. The vast majority of it.
Yes.
Any other questions from the audience? Questions, comments from the board? Marshall?
Yeah, just quick counter to that too, Alex, is that, Cindy does a fantastic job of running our campground, which does bring in revenue. And at the same time, that doesn't compete with other campgrounds in Branson, because when those asked us to basically raise our rates so we could be competitive with them, so we weren't undercutting them, we did that, right? And so we've also discussed with Cindy about some opportunities and maybe some merchandising and things within our parks, which could be revenue generating. So there's two kind of sides of the conservative coin there. You could talk about privatization, you could talk about running government like a business, which Cindy kind of does. And it's there's going to be losses. It's not going to be fully profit. We're not going to operate in the black. But we talk so much in this community about the things we do for our visitors, and we just have to have some things for our locals as well. That's kind of some of the people's points.
Yep. Any other comments? Hearing none, let's vote.
Denham,
Yes.
Cooper,
Yes.
Rodriguez, Howden.
Yes.
LeBlanc.
Yes.
Your Honor, that passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Your Honor, the next item is the first reading of Bill Number 6205, an ordinance accepting the proposal of Uplink LLC for the replacement of existing fire alarm and voice evacuation system with a non-proprietary fire alarm system, replacing all existing devices, and authorizing the mayor to execute the contract.
I'll need a motion and a second to put this on the floor for discussion. No.
So moved.
Second. Staff report?
We have a motion and a second. We'll get a staff report from Cindy.
Sure, Mr. Mayor, members of the board. So this is one of our 2022 capital projects and something we've been working on for a really long time. So 2 qualifying bids were received on August 23rd, 2022 for the replacement of the existing fire alarm and voice evacuation system with a non-proprietary fire alarm system, replacing all of the existing devices at the Recplex. So that we have a pretty old and antiquated system that we can't get parts for anymore. It's kind of leaving us at risk. So we want to bid on this. 2 bids were received. You can see the 2 bids. Branson Fire, Security and Fire was $108,750, and Uplink LLC, $55,363. The bid met city specifications, are budgeted in the capital budget. The project staff recommends a contract to be awarded to the low bidder Uplink LLC for a total not to exceed $55,363. Staff recommends approval of the bill, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Cindy, that's quite a spread.
It is.
Do you have a rationale for that?
So I asked, both companies were on site and did site visits. And so in talking to our maintenance superintendent, he felt like it was really, the price reflects really the ability to execute the contract with staffing. A lot of people are having trouble with staffing, and also supply issues are the big thing. I'm not sure the second company, the hire company, really took the time to delve into it, but his answer was staffing and then being able to get the supplies. It is a, I cannot remember the name of the parts, Silent Night. Does that sound right? All right, we've got our assistant fire chief here. So I think just making sure I mean, if you look at the contract, there's a lot of parts and a lot of labor on that, but I mean, we feel confident that this is a good bid and are just excited about the pricing.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions from the audience? Questions, comments from the board? Hearing none, let's vote.
Denham,
Yes.
Cooper,
Yes.
Rodriguez. Howden,
Yes.
LeBlanc.
Yes.
That motion carries 5-0. Your Honor, the next item is the first reading of Bill Number 6206, an ordinance approving the amendment and renewal of services contract with Snell Grove Outdoor Services LLC for mowing and weed eating, and authorize the mayor to execute the contract.
Okay, the next line here says, we'll begin with a staff report from Cindy Shook.
Mr. Mayor, members of the board, this is the annual review and approval of the city's contract with Snell Grove Outdoor Services for the purposes of mowing and weed eating 47 different locations in the city for a period of 1 year, and for the departments of Parks and Recreation, Public Works, Utilities, Police, and Fire. This is the second renewal of a 4-year agreement with Snell Grove to be reviewed and approved by the Board of Aldermen annually, and they've agreed to hold their prices for 2021, which is great, and so that allows us to continue with the renewal. So the staff recommends the contract for fiscal year 2023 with Snell Grove an amount not to exceed $77,940. The amount is based on 2022 usage and anticipated future usage, and can be adjusted or lowered to save money. The bid item met city specifications and is within budget, and each department has their own budget for this, and it's a part of the 2023 operating budget. So staff recommends approval of the bill. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
You've heard the first reading of Bill number 6206. Do I have a motion approving this bill?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Anybody in the audience wishing to address this? Any member of the board? Hearing none, let's vote.
Denham,
Yes.
Cooper,
Yes.
Rodriguez. Howden.
Yes.
LeBlanc.
Yes.
That motion carried 5-0. Your Honor, the next item is first reading Bill Number 6207, an ordinance approving the renewal of the contract with Specialty Air Conditioning Services Incorporated for HVAC maintenance and repair services of city buildings, and authorizing the mayor to execute the contract.
We'll begin with a staff report from Cindy Shook.
So still me. I try to knock all my stuff out one time a year. So this is the annual review and approval of the city's contract with Specialty Air Incorporated for the purpose of HVAC maintenance and repair services for city buildings for a period of 1 year. This is the first renewal of a 4-year agreement with Specialty Air Services to be reviewed and approved annually by the board. And they've agreed to, again, hold their prices for 2022. Staff recommends the contract for fiscal year 2023 in an amount not to exceed $70,000, which is the same amount as the contract this year. This amount is based on 2020 usage and anticipated future usage. The item meets city specifications and is within budget. Funds are budgeted in the various departmental proposed 2023 operating budgets, and staff recommends approval of the bill, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
You've heard the first reading of Bill number 6207. Do I have a motion approving this bill?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion in 2 seconds. Anybody in the audience wishing to address this? Any members of the board?
Is Cindy breaking arms to keep everybody on the same budget that they had last year?
Well, you know, the last two with the mowing and this, I mean, they're pretty good sized contracts. And
Yeah, they
so
are.
I think that gives them security with that. And so they probably have a lot of contracts with a lot of people, but the city is we're going to pay our bills. And so I think that's it.
But I guess my comment is, I think it speaks to how well you maintain those relationships. Not that anybody else doesn't, but like I've watched you over the last several months, and it's like you really have a way of bringing it in and being very thorough with that.
Well, thank you. The Snell Grove Mowing is someone that we work with closely. In this contract, actually Specialty Air has been under Keith and Cheryl. And so, you know, we kind of work together on these things. But yes, it's important to develop good relationships with people because you want them to come when the air conditioning or heat goes out, for sure.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Hearing none, let's vote.
Denham,
Yes.
Cooper,
Yes.
Rodriguez. Yes. Howden.
Yes.
LeBlanc.
Yes.
That motion carried 5-0.
Madam Clerk, before the next item, why are you giggling at me? For the next item, I'd like to take a 8-minute recess. Is Ruth on? Is Ruth online?
Yep.
Yes.
Then we can start. Okay. Bring this meeting back to order. Hi, Ruth.
Hi, Mayor. Hi, Aldermen.
Okay. Everybody's waiting. Are you ready? Okay, Madam Clerk.
Your Honor, the next item is the first reading of Bill Number 6208, an ordinance approving the contract with Flender Corporation for the purchase of the Cooper Creek Aerator Gearbox and authorizing the mayor to execute the contract.
We'll begin with staff report from Kendall Powell.
Need a motion in a second?
Now, that was fair. That was very fair.
Finally give it back to us.
Very good.
Just trying to help.
Isn't it great that our directors are feeling comfortable to throw the mayor under the bus? That's a good sign.
Okay.
Okay, we will begin with the staff report from Kendall Powell.
All right. The Utilities Department is requesting a contract with Flender Corporation to purchase an aerator gearbox at the Cooper Creek wastewater treatment plant. The aerator is an impeller in the biological part of the sewer treatment plant. It swirls the surface of the water to enrich, the biological, or the oxygen in the water. This activity, or this activates the bacteria so that the biodegradable constituents are removed from the sludge. So in other words, this is kind of the heartbeat of the treatment plant. We starve the bugs and then we feed them oxygen and they like to eat and then they take care of the nutrients for us. And so things settle out and then we are able to process the sludge. A request for bids was received on August 2nd, 2022. 3 bids were received from Independent Electric Machinery in the amount of $95,322.90. JCI Industries, Inc. in the amount of $86,313, and Flender Corporation in the amount of $72,560. I would like to point out that we originally budgeted $47,000 in our 2022 budget. However, through our own internal priority-based budgeting process, we postponed one of our other capital items, freeing up some monies in order to cover for the extra costs there. So staff recommends approval of the contract with Flender Corporation in the amount not to exceed $72,560 for the 2022 contract period.
Thank you. You've heard the first reading of Bill 6208. Do I have a motion approving this bill?
So move. Second.
A motion is second. Anybody in the audience wishing to speak to the sludge question? Any members of the board? Hearing none, let's vote.
Denham.
Yes.
Cooper.
Yes.
Rodriguez. Oh, sorry. Howden.
Yes.
LeBlanc.
Yes.
That motion carried 5-0. Your Honor, the next item is the first reading of Bill Number 6209, an ordinance approving the renewal of the contract with Affinity Chemical LLC for the purchase of operational chemicals used in the city's wastewater treatment process and authorizing the mayor to execute the contract.
We'll begin a staff report with Kendall.
All right. Bids were received on September 29th of 2021 for the purchase of operational chemicals for the use in the city's water and wastewater treatment processes. Contracts were entered for the fiscal year of 2022 with the chemical supply bidders providing the lowest and best bid for specific chemicals. If approved, this will be the first of 3 optional contract renewals for Affinity Chemical LLC. Contract terms require the vendor to maintain the original unit prices or a lower unit price if the renewal is desired. Affinity Chemical has agreed to hold the original 2021 One, unit pricing under this renewal contract for aluminum sulfate in bulk used in the wastewater treatment process for phosphorus removal at a total cost not to exceed $119,000. Staff recommends approval of the contract renewal with Affinity Chemical for the purchase of operational chemicals for our wastewater treatment process. Funds are budgeted in our proposed 2023 utilities operation budget.
Thank you. You've heard the first reading of Bill 6209. Do I have a motion approving this bill?
So moved.
Second.
Anybody in the audience wishing to speak to this? Any members of the board? Hearing
Way to
none?
hold the price.
Oh,
I was just say, way to hold the price, Kendall.
This is the only company that chose to hold their price this year. The rest of them will be changing.
Cindy, I did.
anything else, Ralph?
No, sir.
Okay,
Good to go.
so let's vote.
Denham,
Yes.
Cooper,
Yes.
Rodriguez. Yes. Howden,
Yes.
LeBlanc.
Yes.
That motion carried 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kendall.
Your Honor, the next item is a discussion of the use of American Rescue Plan Act ARPA funds to provide retention pay for all full-time employees.
We'll begin with an introduction by Kathy Stepp.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to start out by, before we bring Jan up to address any particulars, just to share with you the thought process behind how we've come to the recommendation that we want to forward to you all for consideration this evening. Before I get into the meat and potatoes of that, I would like to just share my observations of the team that we have here in Branson over my short 5th, 6th, 7th day of working, I think it's what it is now. And I guess I'm just going to echo the things that you all have been saying for so long since you've taken office and probably before, which is we have an extraordinary group of dynamic individuals who really lead with servant hearts. And they have done an outstanding job in representing the best interests and the positions of their teams individually. But what was most impressive to me was how they were able to come together at the end and do what you all asked them to do at the last board meeting, which was put your heads together, work together as a team from an enterprise perspective, bring us something that we can decide on that is the most fair and equitable plan that you can discern. And I am really, really proud of this team to say that's exactly how these conversations went. It is such a family mentality here. I can't get all choked up at my very first formal meeting here with y'all, but I will tell you, it really blew me away, and it's not something that I've seen in my government experience. There are no silos here. This is one team, one family, and so I'm going to get into the particulars of the plan that we want to forward to you. And having said all that, we also had to be cognizant that the board last year made statements and made commitments to our public safety team, and we wanted to honor that too in the recommendation that we bring to you all. So here it is in a nutshell, and then I'll have Jan here to answer any particulars if you want to know some of the more specifics, but I'm hopeful that you guys will see this as an acceptable way to move forward and go into 2023. So overall, we would like to present the idea of matching what was done last year for public safety employees, which is 10% of their salary. We're going to base it on the 2021 salaries, okay? So it's not going to be based on 22, but it'll be the same as what it was in 21. And then the money that's left over in that pot of 1.2 million, whatever it is, Jan will give you the exact number, comes to a total benefit that we're going to split up evenly amongst all of the non-public safety staff. One of the things I heard when I came in is people, you guys did the 10%, 5% last time, and that created a little bit of heartburn, right? Because some people working next to each other got more than others. And after listening to the directors and taking their lead, they felt it would be much more equitable if we could get as many people as possible to be given the same check. It buys the same amount of groceries for everybody, no matter how much money you make, same amount of tuition, whatever bills it is that they're going to use to pay it with. So the total benefit to each staff person would be approximately, and again, we've got to, I'm just giving you this to chew on, but approximately $3,545 per person. Out of that will have to come the retirement and FICA, right, Jan? And then approximately left over in the employee's paycheck will be around $2,900 each. If you have questions, you can direct those to Jan if you want some more particulars, but I will tell you, there's lots and lots and lots of recipes on how to do this. None of them are perfect, and there's a million cooks in the kitchen. So I'm hopeful that you'll proceed with the recommendation we're presenting you tonight, because there was a lot of thought that went into it. Thank you.
I would like to start off by saying, I could not imagine going back on public safety when we told them they would get 10%. This year, I was part of the board that made that agreement, and in my opinion, if we're not worth our word, I think we could be questioned on a lot of things we do. So I'm very pleased keeping the public safety. And so what I heard you say was it's not 10% of their current salary. They're going to get the same amount they got last year.
Correct.
Okay. Any aldermen have any questions, comments?
So what you're saying is, fire and police are getting 10%, and everybody else is getting
Lump sum,
2,900 approximately bring home?
correct. The total benefit
That's gross
is,
before tax.
Yeah.
right, yeah.
The gross is 35, yeah.
Yeah, because remember, the loggers benefit they still get, right, eventually. It's just, so I do want to be mindful of what the total benefit amount is to staff, the 35, approximately.
So by dividing it per person versus the way it was divided last year, I know I heard a lot of comments from our personnel asking to split it evenly. So Jan, I guess it's safe to say the 35, 45 per person, some are getting more, some are getting less.
That's right.
Right?
This, when you divide it the way it was divided, it inherently benefits the lower paid staff more. They get a bigger share of the pie.
Mayor, if you're agreeable to this, I believe the next step then would be if you direct us to, ink this and put it before you in a formal proposal, we'd be ready to do that at, and I'll look to Lisa's guidance, was it October 20-something?
5th.
October 25th's meeting for you to actually vote on it officially, and then we'll be able to implement that shortly after.
That is done in a form of budget amendment.
Yeah.
So then you're not asking for a vote tonight.
No, sir.
Tonight is to discuss it.
Please.
So all the directors were, they all are good with this from all departments? And
I have a great team, and at our conversation this morning, everybody understood the conundrum that I was sitting in. And actually, we're all sitting in together. This isn't something I'm in alone by any means. And again, they all had an opportunity to advocate on the position that they had, but overwhelmingly, the consensus was it's much more fair to divide up the pot evenly between each employee. And yet I still had to, right, we still have to be honoring the commitment that you all made to public safety. So I hated to use the term King Solomon, right, at those moments, right? What are you going to do? There's going to be people that aren't happy, but at the end of the day, this is a gift above and beyond the compensation adjustments that have been made as of late, as well as 2023's compensation adjustments that are going to be made, if you all see fit to do that. So we really feel confident that this is the best way forward for staff. And that was the consensus of the room.
Well, I get the whole splitting it evenly. It's just, I just wonder how a staff member might feel if somebody from public safety makes 70,000 a year and their 10% $7,000 and theirs is 3,500.
Understood. I didn't know how else.
Not
to
that they
break
don't
it
deserve it,
down. Right.
but if I'm the little guy, I'm like, well, why don't I deserve that? I just want to throw that out there.
Thank you, Alderman Cooper. And I will also say, we'd love to be able to do that. That was going to be my first proposal to you, was let's treat everybody the same and do 10% across the board. We just don't have the money to do that. It would be hundreds of thousands of dollars more that we would have to dip into somewhere.
Well, I understand that, but
I know.
I've been an employee, and that's what I'd be saying. You know, I drive a dump truck all day and load this and scoop that, and I'm getting 3,000 less than somebody else, but what are you gonna do about it? I just, you know, I just want to say that. Because I have employees, and I hear, I'm going through something kind of like that right now with one, you know, but I had a meeting with one today. I'm like, and I get it. I understand where you're coming from, you know. But if I give you this, then my long-timers that didn't get that, how's that fair to them? And then it's hard to be fair, especially when you have that many people and that many different departments and people that do so many different jobs, and they're all important. But, you know, it is what it is, I guess. I don't know.
Well, I think the important part is that, you know, all the directors sat around the table and had discussion and advocated, and, you know, as Kathy said, you know, the majority consensus was something similar to this, and you know, to that effect, you know, I guess what boxed us into this inability to have this across the board was last year's discussion and how it was paid out. I mean, you know, it was, and, you know, in an attempt to not break the promise to public safety, you know, I mean, that was first and foremost. I remember those meetings I was watching. I mean, you know, there were a lot of firefighters, a lot of police officers here advocating for what they had been through, and I think that's why that was made. So here we sit in this conundrum, and you know, it's incumbent on us to make a fair decision, you know?
Oh, and I'm not saying we go back on the 10% promise. It just sucks for the ones that's not.
Absolutely. And I think it's important that everybody realizes, like, we have a great deal of empathy for that. I mean, we sit up here, you know, being employers and understanding that yeah, it does kind of suck for some, but I mean.
Well, it sucks for a lot. I mean, it just does. But at the end of the day, like you say, a gift's a gift. If it's 500 or 3,000, you know, at some point you got to be thankful for whatever you get, but because you ain't got to get nothing. I mean, I'm through rambling now.
Starting to sound like Ralph. Any other questions, comments? Ruth, do you have anything?
Well, I feel the same as Ralph and Clay. I think there's a mix of emotions that go along with this decision. But thank you, Kathy, and thank you, directors, for working together as a team to come up with this suggestion. Were any of the employees told about this, or this is just kind of a decision before we bring it on as something to vote on?
No, I haven't shared this with anyone outside of this. I felt it my obligation to let you all review this first before we started talking to staff, and I don't want to be viewed as moving a goalpost on people or getting their hopes up for something. So ultimately, if you're all in agreement with this, we can move forward to do a budget amendment and finalize it and get the money out the door.
Okay, thank you again for working so well with the directors. we trust your judgments, all of you.
Thank you.
Maybe I'm not done. Are the directors of staff, do they feel comfortable that they're not gonna get a lot of pushback or hard feelings over this, or, I mean?
So I guess I'll paraphrase to say they're fully prepared and committed to carry the message through to their staff that this was the best of all of the different recipes that we had to choose from, or in our opinion on the leadership team, that this was the most equitable way to honor what was promised last year and then do something as equitable as possible with the leftovers. Or I don't want to sound like leftovers, like it's a negative thing, the funds that were remaining in the pot.
Was that an answer?
I thought it was. You know, they're certainly prepared that they're going to have conversations with their staff, and they're going to have to explain the reason why. And I've also offered to all of them, if they can have staff call me directly. My plan was to, if you all agree with this, I was going to put out a message to all staff in the morning explaining the why and how we came to this final determination, so that people do understand that. Again, not everybody's going to like it, but I respect staff enough to know that they deserve to know the thought process behind it, and hopefully they'll respect that and move forward.
And I'm hopeful that the staff also appreciates the fact that we did make a commitment to public safety last year. And it wouldn't be any different if we made a commitment to any department and then a year later change our minds, right?
Oh, absolutely, yeah, you couldn't do that, absolutely not.
So I think what it boiled down to was last year we did the 5% across the board. We heard from numerous employees on the idea of splitting the money amongst all. And it sounds like the department heads reached a conclusion. I mean, there's only so many choices. As a mayor, I think it would be very fiscally irresponsible for us to go pull money out of our savings account, right, to try to make everybody get the same amount. This was a certain ARPA amount that we chose to distribute.
Well, and please know, I'm not trying to discredit the whole process and the work that you put into it. It's just, I just wanted to verbally say that it's just tough.
And I think those employees appreciate you verbalizing that too, Clay.
You know what I mean? I try to put myself in that, that public works guy or that whatever department it is and how it might make me feel,
Not to be overshadowed by, kind of all the staffing studies that Jan's been doing, and that January 1st, employees across the board are going to have a pay increase. Is that correct?
That's right.
And so, again, this is, a gift that we were able to do because of the ARPA funds, which is a blessing for everyone. And keeping in mind that, because of what this board's doing with the help of Jan through HR, that, January 1st, everybody, kind of levels up. So I think that's important to recognize that, everything's moving in a direction that's going to be very fiscally sound for everyone, So I think this is a really good thing moving forward, for sure.
And based on that, Jan, I just want to say publicly again, how much our whole city appreciates the work, the time and effort that you and your department put in on that staffing study. I think that was very equitable. I think it was needed for some time, and I was impressed with the numbers. I think now we'll be more equitable to other municipalities, which we should have been.
At the end of the day, we saw a serious discrepancy in our
levels of compensation pretty much across the board. And hopefully we can address most of those. And we've got a good methodology laid out, I think, working with Ben and Baker Tilly to lay this out and get employees paid appropriately.
Okay.
Okay, so we will work with the clerk and come back with a budget amendment for you all to formalize in a couple weeks. And I appreciate your guidance. Thank you.
So to get the money to the employees quicker, it would require a meeting for us to have a read and a second read, right?
And if you're so inclined to do a double read that night, that would be certainly your prerogative, so that we can help get the money moving faster. But again, we'll leave that to your discretion.
Especially now that they have these 2 weeks to review what we've talked about. They hear the intent of what's going to be proposed by city staff, so.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jan.
Your Honor, the next item is appointments. This appointment process is in accordance with the Board and Committee Appointments Procedure for Category 4, which are appointments made by the mayor but not approved by the Board of Aldermen. Mayor, please announce your appointments.
Actually, my appointments are based on the recommendation from the Branson Housing Authority Board. So my appointments to the Branson Housing Authority Board with terms expiring September of 2026 is Glenda Justice and Doug Baker. And I want to thank them for continuing to serve. That leads us to the report section of our meeting. Alderman Denham, any report?
I don't have a report. I just had a thought, a suggestion I wanted to pass on. Can we, of course, with the board, Mr. Mayor, yours and the board's agreement, schedule an ordinance amendment which would exclude the special event permit application fee for the Veterans Parade and the Adoration Parades, so that it can just be taken care of and we won't have to keep having this item on our agenda?
Madam Clerk, what would be the process of that?
We can write code, but I think it still takes the board approval, no matter if there's a fee or not, for the special use tier.
We're still needing the special use
But we can,
permit, but you're talking about waiving the fee. Is
Yeah.
that correct, Ruth?
we could put that in.
Yes, the application fee.
The application fee.
Yeah, that's a code amendment. We can process that.
Thank you for that, Ruth. Anything else?
You're welcome. No, that's all I have.
Thank you. Alderman Cooper.
I don't know that I really had anything other than the discussion, the CVB discussion we had last night. Again, I just want to say, we are Faith, Family, Flag. That's our brand. It has been forever, and it should be forever. And I think we should take a stand on protecting those values that Branson holds and stay steady on that rock and keep the motivation for why people come to Branson. If you want to go to Las Vegas, when you get there, you know what you're going to get. You're going there to gamble, have a drink, watch a show, whatever it is, you expect that. You go to Myrtle Beach, you know, a little more of a party life, you're going to see some shows, you're going to go to the ocean. People come to Branson, they know what they're going to get. Faith, family, flag. That's why they come here. I think it should be shouted from a rooftop and on every headlines that we print or every social media post we have, that should be screamed loud. That's all I have to say.
Hear, hear. Alderman Rodriguez.
I want to apologize ahead of time. I have some allergies going on here. Some of you may know, you may have seen an article come out where I talked about the process for hiring the city administrator. You know, when we ran on transparency, we ran on accountability, a couple other things. And I meant those things when I ran. Whether I like the guys up here or not, which I do like all the guys up here, I'm going to hold you accountable if you guys take shortcuts, if you're not forthcoming. It's just, we are all up here because the citizens voted us in. And we're all citizens ourselves. You know, I've been told that I have people behind me that have a vendetta against the mayor, which is not true. When I ran, I mean, I had friends that didn't like the mayor. I had friends that did like the mayor. I still have those friends. So this is nothing personal against the mayor. It's nothing personal against Kathy. I do wish her well, and that's it.
Marshall.
Yes, sir. I want to touch just a little bit on what Clay was talking about. You know, it's really interesting because for a lot of my campaigns, I was the show guy and talked about how live music shows and theaters were one of my main priorities. And I've made a concerted effort to not just hammer that home on every single time I speak, including even last night. I mean, I imagine Jason would have come and thought he would have heard everything that came out of my mouth that would have been about shows, you know, but it's not the way I chose to go because I think there's a lot more issues. But I will say it's another one of the areas where I think our marketing should be different. And if this board and the citizens that elect us feel that it's different, it just doesn't seem like in the paradigm that we have now that there's any recourse that we have. Like, let's say we wanted shows to be marketed more. Let's say we want our values to be marketed more. Clearly, we're not just hearing, you know, deaf ears. I mean, it's combative against us, you know? And so I think there are a lot of issues. Honestly, I felt really good coming out of that meeting yesterday because I think the city is going to move in a great direction, marketing-wise, and just like what Clay said, for me and my house, we're going to stand with the Lord, and that's what Branson's going to be. Thank you.
Ralph.
So over the last week, I guess one of the things that impressed me the most with the Budget and Finance Committee meeting and with the Board of Aldermen was just the conscientious nature that every department head came up here and showed and showcased their creativity with how they're able to do things in-house and save the city money. And I think that was so vitally important for people to see that. I don't think people have really ever gotten that granular with that process and what these guys have been through. And, you know, we've learned a little bit over the last 6 months, but these last week was really very evident that, you know, every day these guys are doing their job and not thinking like there's some endless supply of money, let me just keep doing, but that they're really working the budget. And Ben, thank you and Baker Tilly for allowing that process to unfold. And just to the department heads, your confidence in us and being open to have those round-the-table discussions, I think is just paramount. And those are the things that when we talk about transparency, that's what we want. We want the people to know that the people that are working as department heads, the residents understand that we are doing everything every single day to bring the best of Branson out, whether it's water quality, sewer, roads and bridges, I mean, everything. You guys are doing an amazing job, and we tell you that all the time, but this was really economic proof that you guys are doing the job and doing it effectively. So thank you so much for all of that.
Thank you, Ralph. Kathy?
Oh, nothing, thank you.
Two things. For Clay and Marshall's comments, we are calling a city board and TCD meeting so we can continue to our discussion. It sounded like a lot of our discussion last night revolved around the CVB's conundrum between what they hear from the MOC and what they hear from the Board of Aldermen. So I'm very hopeful and confident that we'll be able to work that out with the TCD, so I'm looking forward to that meeting. I'd be remiss if I didn't address Alderman Rodriguez's comments. I will say that when I read the article, I was surprised. I believe there was a few statements that weren't quite accurate. So I want to share my 2 cents, respecting Alderman Rodriguez's opinions. And I won't belabor this, but a few things. I know Alderman Rodriguez feels that Kathy wasn't qualified because she did not have a master's degree. I want to say that when Baker Tilly interviewed 50 applicants, they narrowed it down to 10 and told this board that out of these 10, all 10 are qualified. And if I'm not mistaken, 4 of the 10 did not have a master's degree. So even though Alderman Rodriguez felt that that was a drop-dead requirement, Baker Tilly, the professional search firm, didn't think so. Our code does not say city administrator must have a master's degree. It said it should as a recommendation. However, I feel that with Kathy serving 3 years for the EPA as a regional director, serving 7 years, appointed as a cabinet position by Donald Trump for DNR, managing 4,000 employees with a $500 million budget. She was a state senator. I believe she was not only qualified to be a local city administrator, I think she exceeded the qualifications. I think we're fortunate to have somebody who's lived in our backyard, understands our culture, and even was willing to be a city administrator. So I will admit she does not have the experience of a local city administrator. That is true. However, I think 10 years in federal government at a much larger scale, I think she'll be able to handle the city of Branson just fine. I want to publicly thank Jan again for the staffing study. I want to thank Ben for all he's doing on our budget numbers. I listened to every single director, and Ben, I have to tell you, and I think you're hearing the same thing. The directors are excited that they get to sit one-on-one with you. They're more excited that they get to sit as a group. I even heard on one occasion that one of the directors had a request, and when he saw the demand in another department was much greater than his own department, he withdrew his request because he saw another department had a stronger need. That is collaboration, that's caring, that's openness. And I'll tell you, just that change in mindset, and there's been a lot of mindset changes here in City Hall, that is extremely complimentary. And I'm just excited about that. So it is 8:35. I know we didn't break a record tonight, but not too far off. I'll need a motion to go into executive session.
Mayor, I move to go into closed executive session pursuant to 610.021.1 RSMO for litigation and 610.021.2 RSMO for real estate.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, would you provide a roll call vote, please?
Denham.
Yes.
Cooper.
Yes.
Rodriguez. Yes. Howden.
Yes.
LeBlanc.
Yes.
Your Honor, that motion passed, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to adjourn the Board of Aldermen meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Madam Clerk, provide a roll call, please.
Denham.
Yes.
Cooper.
Yes.
Rodriguez. Howden.
Yes.
LeBlanc.
Yes.
Motion passed 5-0. We are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you. Meeting's adjourned.